Anyway, dumb Redditors aside, in the top right, it is Sidestorm Gaming's MaxPax. In the bottom left, we do have Basilisk's Trigger. Trigger has had a difficult time coming here, actually. More difficult than I expected. But he is certainly not at that stage where he is easy breezy moving his way through open cups. He did struggle versus DNS, switch to PvP, cross server. You know, that's supposed to be kind of tough, although Trigger is East Coast, I believe, so it's not that bad. Fiant, whatever you want to call him. Not usually a contender for the semifinal slot, but did almost win versus Trigger in a PvZ. And now Trigger faces his greatest opponent by far, which is MaxPax. Still one of the, if not the, he might still be the best PvP player. A year plus ago was very easy to make that statement because his win rate in the matchup was completely insane. But he got basically directly nerfed with some of the patches. Even though it wasn't literally an anti-MaxPax thing, it inadvertently was. You know, the Reaper nerf was very much an anti-Beyond thing back in the day, but the Void Ray and the Shield Battery nerf was not so much MaxPax as it was just general Protoss bullshit nerf. But that didn't help, and then also the maps changed, so that, you know, that obviously changed the dynamic however many ways that it could, and then additionally, I would say that the opposing Protoss players have really had to collectively work together to figure out what the hell do we do to stop this guy if we can't replicate what he's doing. And that was their, well, I guess their first attempt was to prove how silly it was. MaxPax was seen as a silly, young, semi-pro many years ago, right? You're like, doing this weird shit. What are you doing? Stop it. Oh, wait, it's working. Okay, hold on. And then people started trying to copy it, and it didn't really work. And then people would only copy it on the maps where it made the most sense, so a natural wall. A natural ramp, sorry. And then, you know, that also apparently stopped working for a little bit. And while we do see it here on this particular game, Trigger going for the exact same opener as his opponent, a lot more times we see people just go ahead and one base against MaxPax. Now, this could be a dedicated one base all in, or it could be kind of like a one base huge delay on the Nexus, kind of making up for the lost timing on the Nexus with some other things going on. But point is, they're not really matching his low ground gateway, Stargate so much. As far as what I've seen. That said, I guess there was that rather amazing regional, a best of 3, a best of 5 actually, between him and Showtime, which was literally them doing the exact same thing as each other, down to the Phoenix vs. Phoenix. And if there is one player I can also think of who does tend to get himself more into Phoenix vs. Phoenix wars with MaxPax, it is Trigger. Trigger coming in with some of that NA uniqueness, I suppose. So, not only willing to do something like this as much as his opponents, but then also like having a little more practice actually with the Phoenix style. Now, just because some of the NA players have maybe more practice overall, it's really hard to say that as a fact. I would still say MaxPax is better at the Phoenix Wars. And, well, weirdly enough, you might already be seeing this in effect. He might already be winning this game. One Stalker proves a tall task for 2 Phoenix to kill. Third one's coming in, no. And Trigger has stopped trying to build Phoenix because he lost the Phoenix War. He was already trying to move over to Twilight Council. He didn't want to play the Phoenix War. Unfortunately, that gap of where you are moving away from the Phoenix into Blink takes a very long time. And the Phoenix, without any real amount of ground pressure stopping them from just roaming around, I mean, they're going to get the benefit. They're going to get probe kills, they're going to get scouting, they're going to get map control. They can't stop bases from being built, so that's the one thing that Trigger could probably do without fear for a little while anyway. MaxPax will not have a game-ending composition for a little while. Phoenix do have difficulty actually ending games, considering their lack of ability to kill structures. So, there is that. But, yeah. This already feels like a good situation for MaxPax, one in which he is primed and ready to play this one, you know, but Trigger is going to try and still play this out. His gateways are finally finishing, which means that he can also finally warp in enough Stalkers to actually help him. And again, Phoenix, with that energy constraints, Can only do so much. Great micro, though, from MaxPax to save 2 very injured Phoenix, still having a total of 6, working on his 7th. Finally getting that Warp Gate, which he purposefully delayed, of course. He opted into a double Stargate for a hot second, then realized his opponent wasn't going into his own double Stargate, and so canceled the Stargate, went for a Robo instead. That's going to give him the Immortal backup to get his own third base up and running, should Trigger start to establish some more map control with a larger Stalker count. Still not quite there yet. And then move his way over into his own Blink, and then we might even get into some Disruptor Wars. That's great. That's awesome. Disruptor Wars are fun. Much more fun than Phoenix Wars into Tempest and that type of bullshit. One Phoenix finally went down, but they're now in the main base. Blink's still not yet done. Even if Blink was done, to traverse between the third, into the natural, into the main, takes a little while on this map. They're very well protected because there's not multiple entries into your bases, but oh, MaxPax. Actually waiting a little too long right there. We'll lose a second Phoenix, but not a third. But yeah, it's very well protected as far as direct attacks, but as far as flying units running around, this is why sometimes it can be used for mutas in TVZ, although mutas overall really fallen off, and why Phoenix can be, I guess, annoying. I wouldn't say that Radicet makes itself a more prominent Phoenix map in general. It's just kind of a byproduct of a MaxPax game. The Phoenix go out, and then they go in. Can't explain it. More probes going down. It's a total of 13 killed, but Trigger is just pumping probes during the harassment. That's all he can do. And so he is still keeping even slightly ahead of the probe count. MaxPax did build a couple of Immortals, is now wary of the counterattack, realizing the Stalkers weren't chasing his Phoenix. Pre-hallucinated that Immortal. Nicely done. Wasn't strictly necessary, but, you know, there could have been a proxy gateway, there could have been more emphasis, there could have even been, you know, faster charge. Although he has seen the Twilight Council multiple times and it has not been researching. So you don't want to take that seriously. But, you know, MaxPax didn't really need to worry about getting a third base, moving out away from the safety of the shield battery, because it is Radicet. And so you do have that third base in the back you could take. Easy peasy. The rocks will be destroyed, and the minerals will not provide enough buffer against the Blink Stalkers. His Blink Stalkers really do want to blink in, but that's why the army repositions, isn't it? And as soon as the Stalkers blink aggressively, cannot blink defensively, which would be very bad against now what is a true 3 Immortal count, not a hallucinated third Immortal. Phoenix once again coming in to kill a couple extra probes, targeting the gas probes often as well. The most annoying one to deal with. We got Observer Wars going on here. And MaxPax is down 7 probes, despite all the probe damage that he has done. More Chronos, I suppose, going into Trigger's Nexus. He also did establish that third base far faster. Once again, managing to catch yet another Phoenix, the third one down. But we're talking about 3 Phoenix over the course of, like, 5? 3 Phoenix over 5 minutes, I guess? One of the first Phoenix popped exactly. Oh, DTs! I heard that swipe. I did notice the Dark Shrine on the way. Forgot to mention it. But MaxPax certainly didn't forget that he built it. War Prism came in as well, which is really quite annoying. Where you are? There you are. And even though this isn't killing a tremendous amount of probes, it is still doing a lot of chaos. 4 probes, and really not too bad at all. But also the Observer just died, which I'm now realizing that was a double whammy. That was an absolutely perfect situation for MaxPax, being able to see his opponent's Observer with his Phoenix. Hot damn. Hot damn. Troublesome stuff. And, well, the cannon at the third base will at least guarantee 1 base mining throughout all of this. There is so much lost mining time. The consistent threat of the DT as well. And the knowledge that MaxPax is no doubt taking this opportunity to get ahead on the economy in terms of the probe count, consistent income, and the 4th Nexus. Although Trigger actually pretty much same time, actually. At least keeping his head on straight while dealing with the damage. And that is often the side problem to DTs, is that you get so caught up trying to deal with the DTs. You also start to get supply blocked, you stop building, you stop producing, and you stop expanding, and, well, it's another problem on top of an already big problem. The probe damage out 15 is a good amount for sure, and then also the lost mining time. If you check the income graph, pretty big dip, you can see, or a peak, I suppose. A dip for Trigger, peak for MaxPax. And it's going to continue. This War Prism was never found out. It just chilled. And that hanging little natural there, just chilled, man. 1 cannon will not stop the DT from actually entering into the mineral line, and MaxPax is now ready to go with his own actual game-ending army. No longer based on Phoenix. He's got his Blink Stalkers. He's got his Immortals. He is caught a little bit of a weird position. Trigger is threatening a surround, and War Prism is actually quite far away. So maybe this doesn't end the game right here, right now, but it is dangerously close to doing so. MaxPax with a 30 supply lead. Does have 20 of that in probes. That's why it's not quite as one-sided. But nonetheless. Guardian Shield also active for MaxPax. Trigger working with a little bit of a shield battery, but actually no longer. And now the War Prism is even more aggressively placed. This is going to be game. Trigger totally unsuspecting of the DT harassment. That was the kicker 100%. I think without the DT harassment, he kills the War Prism. He has cannons in his mineral lines. You know, this is not game over here. But it still would have, in my opinion, gone more MaxPax sided, as I do think MaxPax remains a stronger PvP player than Trigger. And there is the final charge that weapon I would think would end the game, but Trigger is determined to hang on. The thing is that Trigger is not gaining anything here. He's not hanging on to a army fight where he's eventually going to have a stronger economy. So it's just like, hang on, just hang on, don't worry. You still got this. No, you really don't have this. There's nothing going for Trigger. Not army supply, not workers, not upgrades. +2 finish from MaxPax. Trigger's Forge was depowered for most of this time. It's game. Thanks, Kiwi, for the gifted sub during that. MaxPax getting a 5th base even now. The last Shield Body Overcharge not even going to affect the majority of this fight. And that is finally game. MaxPax will take game number 1 in the second semifinals. Reddit thread sounds diluted. Well, it sounds like a typical, what we were talking about before that game. Sounds like a typical Korean fanboy, which, you know, I used to be one of the biggest Korean fangirls. And I'd still call myself a Korean fangirl, but I was definitely there hating the region lock and thinking it was going to destroy all of the, you know, relationships that we've built. But it ended up being a really positive thing. And I can certainly look at the decaying Korean scene and acknowledge that while our best Korean players are still the best, they will always be championship contenders. They no longer have the same structure they used to. And will understandably fall off. And I do believe they have. In the top right, it is Trigger. In the top left, it is MaxPax, who is up 1-0. But yeah, it's kind of this weird thing where, like, I feel like at the same time that this guy comes in eagerly to defend his heroes, he also is probably the first one to excuse a top Korean player loss to a European by saying, well, the Korean scene just doesn't have as much support as it used to, so it's really hard for them to continue up their practice and feel like there's a future and whatever else. That I think is very true. I think it is actually very difficult to be a Korean pro right now. It has been for years. But then you also would have to acknowledge that means they are eventually going to get worse, right? Right? Anyway. Just call me a European biased commentator. It's alright. I can take it. I just don't know why he brought in like a Korea versus NA argument. Actually, Korea and NA really now have even more in common than ever before. Which is that, well, they're both kind of a decrepit shell of what they used to be. The NA scene marketing way farther back as far as being top tier. I mean, we're talking like 2010, 2011. All the tournaments, all the popular players, some of the strongest storylines, a couple of the strongest players. But it did happen, and then a lot of things ruined that. In Korea, only recently, I suppose. Only like, I feel like around 2019 did they really start to get concerned over their lack of new blood. And probably around 2022, I think, is when I at least officially said, you know what, GSL? It's a regional. It's not the most competitive competition anymore. But anyway, we're not even talking about any Korean players. Talking about a good old-fashioned well, European versus North American PvP, but since most North Americans who are looking to be full-time do play on Europe, we can just basically call it a European PvP. Although I still really feel like Trigger is he's got that spice that only North American players have, you know? There's something distinctly American about his playstyle, or Canadian, sorry, excuse me. Thanks, Kiwi, once again. So we have MaxPax going for, well, his typical thing. He doesn't care about the map, he doesn't care about the lack of natural ramp, he goes for his one gate. Trigger deciding to use Equilibrium to go for the gold base. Now, this is totally on the nose at this point. You should be scouting this first. As soon as you figure out the second pylon is back in home, and then you're wondering where the Nexus is, you scout the gold. That's what you gotta do on this map. The problem... Oh, excuse me. The problem is that actually managing to take down the gold base, particularly in this matchup where you both are restricted as far as those early game units, but MaxPax even more restricted because he only has one gateway, you can't really punish the gold base. You can harass it, you can bother it, but as far as killing it, probably not. But it doesn't look like Trigger is dedicating to this gold base anyway. That's a weird way to put it, but... Ooh. A little awkward warp in there, so it's a couple of chomps. Trigger will eventually out-micro, and we'll save the Nexus. There is a backup plan here, but we got proxy gateways coming on through. This Oracle gets into the main a little bit, but not really enough to 100% say, oh, there's something missing. Because if this Oracle got all around up in here and saw all the pylons and all the lack of technology, that would be a scout. I don't think MaxPax has been able to do that, so he is not looking around the map for these proxy gateways, still micring as well on the gold base too, hovering his Oracle around, waiting for the probes to come in, seeing no probes, and then revelating, which isn't actually a word, but it should be, the main base, and they might be coming together. I think he was starting to put two and two together, like, why don't you have a surplus of probes? What's going on? And that is why so many Stalkers being produced instead, 12 Stalkers to 2. One shield battery is going to go down. That pylon also in trouble. One Void Ray trying to make its way out to save the day, but will it? It will actually finish, surprisingly enough, and the shield battery backups were in the nick of time. But I don't know. That's going to be a lot of Stalkers. And the prismatic alignment will not last forever. Second Void Ray cannot be afforded as MaxPax too busy building up his static defense. Finally affords the production of the second Void Ray, but now the Stargate is also in trouble. Using your shield battery energy to defend that is a problem, and he's gonna need to if he actually wants to get the Void Ray out. Finally, the shield battery actually goes for the Stargate save, but it's gotta be overcharged as well. Probes have been pulled, but then probes have also been killed. Double Oracle did eventually come up for MaxPax to decimate Trigger's economy, where at least, well, they both have double Nexus actually, it's just that Trigger's isn't mining. I don't know, man. I don't know. This actually might still go MaxPax's way. Trigger is running out of steam. That second Void Ray somehow, some way, is actually going to produce. We have 5 shield batteries, 4 shield batteries, and plenty of pylons to back them up. And with just a trickle of gateway units from MaxPax as well, I think he has built up a strong enough defense to ensure his victory in this game. One shot on the Void Ray, though. That is important. Second Void Ray will live, and many of Trigger's Stalkers are very, very injured. It is, in fact, going to be a MaxPax victory, as he just completely obliterated Trigger's economy. 2 workers to 29.